From a championship with a screen in the middle to belts that were literally made out of cardboard, these are WWE championships you didn't even know about. But first off, does the Intercontinental Championship look weird to you in this clip? For a brief period in 1998, the IC title had a purple strap instead of the usual black one. I'm not sure why WWE gave up on the color change so quickly, but it could have been that the purple dye just faded out. This wasn't the only time WWE experimented with the Intercontinental Championship's design either. In 1993, WWE tried out a blue strap for the belt. It looked alright, but I can see why they didn't keep it. Speaking of blue, remember that time WWE randomly changed the World Championship? At WrestleMania 14, Stone Cold won the WWE Championship and kicked off the Austin era. The next night, Vince McMahon presented Steve Austin with the WWE title. However, this version had a blue strap instead of the signature black. This change lasted only for a short time, as just 2 weeks later, the championship belt was back to having a black strap. Unlike a lot of these obscure championship belts though, we actually know what happened to this one. Over a year later, Arnold Schwarzenegger appeared on SmackDown. Vince McMahon personally gifted the actor the blue strap WWE Championship belt. I guess since they weren't doing anything with it, WWE decided to get some publicity. When a wrestler wins a championship, they'll sometimes create their own custom title belt. One of the most famous examples of this is Stone Cold Steve Austin's Broken Skull Championship. However, The Miz put a literal spin on the WWE Championship and rotated the WWE logo 90 degrees, creating an M. Goldust, on the other hand, made the Intercontinental Championship all gold when he held it, which actually looked pretty sweet. One of the most unique championship designs, though, belongs to Daniel Bryan. After winning the WWE Championship in 2018, Bryan started calling himself the Planet's Champion. He was upset that the WWE Championship was made of leather, so he introduced a belt that was created from entirely sustainable materials. The belt was made of wood and fabric, and was actually a pretty cool title design. Another really unique championship belt was the one created by the Fiend Bray Wyatt. After winning the Universal Championship, Wyatt started carrying around a version of the belt with the Fiend's face plastered right in the center. It looked unlike any championship ever created, with a fleshy appearance and feel. Once the Fiend lost the Universal Championship though, this belt was retired and hasn't been seen since. Now, talking about personalized championship belts, WWE needs to bring this idea back. In 2002, WWE started having custom belts for the hardcore champions. Here's what was cool. The titles were themed around where the wrestlers were from. For instance, when Bradshaw was the hardcore champion, he had a Texas flag on the belt. Then, when Tommy Dreamer won the title, he had a New York license plate slapped on it. However, shortly after WWE started doing this, the Hardcore Championship was retired. Still, this was a cool idea, and considering how diverse and international the WWE roster is now, I think this concept should be revisited. But we cannot discuss personalized WWE championships without talking about The Rock's Brahma Bull title. This was meant to be The Rock's answer to Austin's Broken Skull title. However, despite the Brahma Bull Championship being created, it never appeared on TV. After the Brahma Bull belt was created, it was shipped to WWE, where it got lost in the mail. It was eventually found, but by then, WWE had already gone in a different direction, and the Brahma Bull Championship never got used on TV. However, in 2024, things came full circle. The Rock was gifted a newer version of the Brahma Bull belt, and unlike the original, this one was used on TV.
You can hold this one as long as I can hold yours.
Speaking of belts that never made it to television, remember Zack Ryder's Internet Championship? Ryder made this thing for his YouTube show, Z True Long Island Story. While the belt appeared in WWE video games and was even included with the Zack Ryder action figure, it was never defended in WWE. But it did technically make one very brief appearance. Yes, I lied. During a backstage segment, John Cena walked by Zack Ryder, who had the original Internet Championship on his shoulder. The Brahma Bull and Internet Championships are not the only titles that ever got used though. At WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan defended the WWE Championship against Andre the Giant. The WWE title was too small for Andre though, so in preparation, WWE created a special giant version of the WWE Championship belt. This belt had an 80-inch girth to match Andre's gigantic size. However, since Hogan defeated Andre and retained the title, the belt was not needed. So far, we've only looked at real championships. But what about fake ones? In 2004, WWE was graced by El Gran Luchador. He was the champion of Mexico and held his own championship belt. The title was never defended, and once El Gran Luchador was gone from WWE, so was this championship. Now, we've seen many unique championship belts. but this one might be the most distinctive. In 2010, country music singer Toby Keith was a guest star on Raw. As WWE often does with celebrities, Keith was gifted his own championship belt. However, this wasn't your typical title belt. Toby Keith was given the WWE Electrovision Championship. It looked just like the WWE title, but with a lit up screen in the middle. It was pretty flashy, but not nearly as flashy as Naomi's Custom Glow Women's Championship belt. That is definitely an underrated championship belt design. WWE's first pay-per-view event in Saudi Arabia took place in 2018 and was dubbed the Greatest Royal Rumble. The main event was a Royal Rumble match that featured an impressive 50 entrants. Braun Strowman was the ultimate winner, and while he didn't get to challenge for the World Championship, he didn't go home empty-handed either. Strowman was crowned the Greatest Royal Rumble champion and given a championship belt. It was essentially the WWE title, but with a green strap. The Greatest Royal Rumble championship was only seen once, and to this day, Braun Strowman is still technically the Greatest Royal Rumble champion. On the topic of championships that have only appeared once, we must discuss the Yolo County Tag Team Championship. In 2019, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan, declared that they were going to defend their titles against the Yolo County Tag Team Champions. Yolo County must have had a tight budget because their tag team championship belts were made out of cardboard. Regardless, it was Tucker and Otis who ended up actually fighting the Yolo County Tag Team Champs, and they won in quick and dominant fashion. The Yolo County belts were never seen again, and I just assumed they ended up in a recycling plant. Until recently, WWE had very rarely mentioned other wrestling companies, let alone showcased their championships. However, a few titles from other organizations have appeared and even been defended at WWE events. One of the earliest incidents happened at the 1993 Survivor Series pay-per-view. WWE had a working relationship with Smoky Mountain Wrestling, or SMW, a smaller company based in Tennessee. The SMW Tag Team Championship was defended at Survivor Series and pitted the champions, the Rock and Roll Express, against the challengers, the Heavenly Bodies. The Bodies won, but this wouldn't be the last time that championships from outside companies would appear in WWE. In the late 90s, WWE began a storyline where the National Wrestling Alliance, or NWA, was invading WWE. This led to the introduction and subsequent defense of the NWA North American Championship on Monday Night Raw, and later the NWA Tag Team Championship would also appear. This NWA invasion storyline also saw the WWE debut of Dan the Beast Severn. At the time, Severn was both the NWA World Champion and the UFC Super Fight Champion, so he brought both titles with him. While neither championship was ever defended in a WWE ring, it was pretty cool seeing these titles make an appearance. It wouldn't be until decades later, however, that a rival company's championship appeared in WWE. During the 2022 Women's Royal Rumble match, Mickie James made her WWE return, but she also brought with her the TNA Knockouts Championship. This was surprising to see, but little did fans know what this would become. After the Rumble, WWE and TNA remained friendly and ultimately announced a multi-year partnership in 2025. This not only saw WWE wrestlers and championships appearing in TNA, but also TNA titles appearing and being defended on WWE shows. I love seeing that, but you know what I don't love seeing? Bad wrestling championship designs. In fact, one of them is so awful that we had to blur it out. To see it for yourself, watch the video on screen.